talk about scatter plots, and scatter plots are used to relate two different sets of data to one another. And sometimes they're random, and sometimes they aren't. And there's different examples, and they're pretty easy to recognize once you see them. So when this is one set of data, this is another set of data, and this is a husband's age versus a wife's age. And they don't always match up in a straight line. When you're 50, you don't marry, or you're not married to someone who's 50 exactly, but the data goes up in a positive, what we call a positive slope. So that means that there's a positive correlation. And one way of thinking about this is if you were to kind of connect the dots overall, you'd kind of draw a line here, and it would kind of be right in the middle there somewhere, and about half of them would be above, about half of them would be below. And if it's a positive slope, then that's called a positive correlation. That means that you would expect that when a wife's age went up, that the husband's age would be up too. So not over time, but just someone who's 70, you'd expect to be married to someone who's close to 70, as opposed to someone who is over here like 40. Another type of correlation is when one piece of data goes up, the other one goes down. That's called a negative correlation. This is an example here. If you look here, the mileage their car gets depends on its weight. So if you're carrying a bunch of extra stuff, then you can notice here, and you can see pretty clearly that there's a downward trend, and so that's a down slope, and so that would be a negative correlation. Now, sometimes correlations make logical sense. Sometimes they don't make logical sense. So this one kind of makes logical sense. So does this. One of the classic ones I always like using is the idea that ice cream sales are related to murders. I've talked to you about that before, and you should remember that for the quiz maybe tomorrow, or there'll be a couple of other things too. So in terms of murders and ice creams, the reason why it happens that way is because it's summertime, and when people like getting the most ice cream, and murders are most likely to occur in summer, so those two are related. They're just not related directly in the way that you would think they would be. There's another variable that's affecting them. So this one here you should really remember. So if you want to stop global warming, and this is kind of a misleading graph, and we'll deal with misleading graphs as well in this tonight's other video. So this is kind of a misleading graph because it goes up in kind of random things, but if you look at this, global warming has gone up as piracy has gone down. So piracy has gone down to a relatively low amount, although it's gone up a little bit in the Somali area and things like that. But piracy has gone relatively down, so global warming has gone up. So that would be an important thing here. Stop global warming, become a pirate. That's something to think about. So obviously it's a little bit silly, but those two things are not related at all. Just remember, positive correlation like that, negative correlation like that. And narrow correlation is when, if you were to draw a line, you can't really draw it clearly so that there's a line where one half is on one side, one half is on the other. And that's what a positive correlation here, when you draw it, it would clearly be in that direction if you wanted to make that. So that half of them are above, half of them are below. Same thing here. So that's scatter plots.